Thanks for watching Backstreet Gossip. And now, here they are, Ron and Ray.
Well, hello, I am Ron, and my special partner here is Mr. Ray Michaels.
Hello, everyone.
And this good-looking guy in the middle is our treasurer of the former treasurer of the Republican Party, and he is running for treasurer of the state of Arizona, Bob Latari.
Hi, gentlemen. Happy to be here.
It's great to have you, Bob, because you've been here before, but the good news is you're on the ballot now.
I am, yes, with 3,000 signatures to spare.
That's pretty doggone good.
That's awesome.
How many did you need altogether?
In round numbers, 7,400.
Whoa, that's a lot of footwork trying to get 7,000.
Well, it's for the whole state.
Oh, of course.
Now, did you have an opportunity to travel around the state?
I think it was more than an opportunity, it was a necessity to travel all around the state.
So what surprised you? I mean, you've been here for a long time, and obviously we're going to talk about your experience and everything, but was there a small town that you went to that maybe you hadn't been to, and now you said, oh my gosh, that was the best time that I had, I got to go back there?
There was a small town called Quartzsite.
Quartzsite!
Yes.
Well, I know it well.
Yes, and we didn't get a big turnout, but it was a very enthusiastic turnout. People there were concerned. They asked a lot of good questions. Like I said, it wasn't a great turnout, but they were true activists. They were really wanted to know what was going on with me, why I was running, what did I know about the Treasury function. So those were probably better questions than I got in most places.
That's awesome. You know, Ron, you've been to Quartzsite, haven't you?
Many times.
Well, Quartzsite is very. It's
For a
very
little town, it's very
yeah, but it's
colorful.
very famous. When I think it was World War II, they brought a whole bunch of camels out here. Do you know about this?
Hi, Jolly.
Yes, hi, Jolly. Now, if you don't know, this is great Arizona history. We should have an Arizona history show. But they called this guy Hi Jolly. His name was Haji Ali, and he came out to train these camels, but they couldn't pronounce Haji Ali. Did you? And there's actually a memorial. There's a pyramid in Quartzsite that you can see about Hi Jolly or Haji Ali. Now, I don't know. I'm sure you were extremely busy there. Did you have a chance to see the pyramid?
No. However,
now it's a chance to go back.
when I went out there that weekend, they were having a crystal show.
Wow.
And what makes Quartzsite unique is the crystals that are in the mountains that they mined out of it.
And
They always
those
have
are
some sort of
huge
show.
events.
They
Huge.
always have wonderful events there. It's right on I-10, and you got to stop there. You just can't keep blowing through there. You just
No,
have to stop.
It's a neat
They've
place.
got some nice little restaurants with some real colorful people in it.
Yeah.
But there's always some activity going on there, rock shows, car shows, whatever.
Now, Bob, as you traveled around the state, what was the biggest concern that people have with regard to how Arizona is doing, the income? Are we doing well with financially with the state? What was their big concern?
I wish I could answer that question more specifically, but I really can't. I'll tell you why. I think that too many people consider the treasurer's position a down ballot. They
Really?
don't- yes. And they don't really
Probably
pay,
one of the most important
Wow.
ones.
yeah, they don't really pay a lot of attention to it. It's not like running for Senate or running for Congress or,
Speak in the mic here.
yeah, or governor. It truly is a down ballot.
Well,
So it doesn't draw a lot of attention. So what most people think about is, okay, the current treasurer wanted to be governor. She couldn't be governor. Now she wants a job that she didn't want before. Now, that's about the most controversial thing I've heard about the treasurer's position. Like I said, most people really don't understand it.
right. Well, Ron, you have to tell the story about Bob coming in to the AZGOP. Now, when you think, oh, it's just the Treasury position, is the treasurer, it really doesn't make a big difference. But Ron,
Well, here's one of the things that
tell the history
here's
of
the one
that.
thing that people don't understand about political parties. They are so highly controlled by the federal government for money, spending it properly, because it really doesn't belong to the parties, and money is the mother's milk of politics.
Makes things,
So-
make the wheels turn.
Oh, you bet. So when Bob took over as the chair, and
About what year was this?
It was the 2018 cycle, which began January 23rd, 2017.
Okay.
And what happened is this was a mess, and it's very easy to get to be a mess.
A little
because-
mess? Little mess.
A big mess.
A huge mess?
Pretty huge.
Okay.
Yeah, where monies were, and I'm not saying that people stole money. That's not what I'm saying at all. But it's been put in different accounts. It can only be spent certain ways.
It
if
wasn't
it's in a certain
reconciled
account.
properly.
No reconciliation. Well, were reconciliation, but not as accurate as it should be. And I knew the prior treasurer as well. I think he tried to do a good job. But when you come, and the thing, Bob, I think that's really important, is it's a volunteer job. You don't get
it's a
paid to do
volunteer
this.
job.
And it's
For the AZGOP.
yeah.
Yeah.
And it's a lot of work.
Yeah.
And Bob took this over. I think we probably, the state party had many write-ups by the feds that the monies were
What
not
was
proper.
the position when you stepped into that position? What was the condition of the party treasury?
Okay. The party's general counsel, after I took over, became Corey Langhofer. Corey Langhofer prepared a letter to be distributed to the state committeemen at the January 19th meeting. And he clearly stated in his letter that when I took over, the party was in legal peril. That's how he described it.
Peril.
Legal peril.
And that's not a good thing, Ray.
Not a good thing. Nobody wants to be.
So really, here's the genesis of it. What had happened is that the folks that were in charge of compliance reporting and the folks at the office weren't really paying attention to details. The FEC sends a request for additional information. It's a standard inquiry because everything is hard-coded. Nothing, there are things that you spend, there are things that you take in that don't specifically fit that box. So they just want a further explanation of it. And they weren't timely. The fact that they weren't timely pushed them into a position of audit. The fact that they weren't responding to audit pushed us into what's called dispute resolution. So when I took over and I was faced with the dispute resolution, basically I in a business-like manner, went to the office on a regular basis and studied the flow of information, the collection of information, the dissemination of information to the FEC compliance firm, and found that they really didn't have systems that aggregated information accurately. So what we did was we found an expert compliance company. It was RedCurve. And what RedCurve had was really excellent reporting systems. As long as the people at the office provided the information accurately, they had a data collection process for all donations that identified every detail required by the FEC. If you take a look at the raw data, it was kind of overwhelming, but the system that they put together could be sorted by name, amount, event, which is probably the most important thing. And it improved the quality of information that was needed by the FEC compliance company. So going forward, we straightened those issues out, and we addressed all of the outstanding issues, whatever we could, to satisfy the FEC. But basically, it was really a systems issue and training of people. I know that an awful lot of people were annoyed at me that I didn't throw people under the bus, but I was there to solve a problem.
I remember
Right.
those days when
Yeah.
people said,
Well, you
"Gotta
weren't
throw
there to
this guy
throw
under
any.
the bus."
Yeah, you weren't there to do that. You were there to make
Straighten
things
them out.
right and compliant and follow the law.
And we did.
Yeah, that's awesome. Now, how can you use that experience coming into state treasury?
Well, here's how I see it. That proves that I could solve a problem, right? That I can analyze and figure out and put together a constructive resolution. Now, I hope I don't have to do that at the state treasurer's office. Here's what makes me qualified for the job. I've spent my entire career as a financial executive. I've worked 30 years as a CFO. And basically, if you look at the Arizona Revised Statutes duties of the treasurer, it matches a CFO's job. Not all CFOs, because not all CFOs have to raise money. But the positions that I was in, I had to raise, didn't have to, but we raised lots of money in private equity markets. Now, let me distinguish. Private equity markets, public equity markets, you go out, you raise money from people, you can do an IPO and sell your shares. I found that the IPO that I performed, the money was just deployed into operations so quickly. But the large fundraise from private equities are called Series B, and they put down the big bets. And you don't need that money all at once. So when they announce the investment, you become the new best friend of every big bank in America. They're rushing in there to tell you, invest in this, invest in that, and we can secure this, and we can guarantee this. So basically, people put the money into the company for me to deploy it in operations to grow markets, to grow products. But it's foolish not to put your money somewhere you can make something. So I would have to assure the investors of safety and liquidity. So I made very, very safe investments while I parked the money, and we made a reasonable amount of money, certainly more than they paid me over the lifetime of my employment. So it was safe and liquid. Now that's basically what prepares me for this job. It's my FEC, my CFO experience. In addition, as I look at the reporting that's given to the public, if you choose to go into the site and get an annual report, very difficult to read. Now, most financial statements, if you're not a financial guy, is difficult to read. But what the S, the Security Exchange Commission, requires is called a management discussion and analysis of these numbers. I would definitely add to the Treasurer's annual report an MD&A section explaining to people what these numbers really mean.
Right.
Let me give you a case in point. In the annual report, there's one very analyzable pool of investments. It's called external investment. It's made up of $5 billion worth of investment vehicles. Now, published in the annual report, we see that $5 billion only earned $9 million.
Wow, that doesn't
Yeah,
sound like
it's
a
not
good
very
return.
good, is it?
That's 0.001753.
Not even 1%.
Now, no, it's at this particular time, the date of this report, if you went to any bank in America, you could probably get 0.004.
So your passbook savings are better than
Yeah,
the state's.
half a percent.
Yeah,
right?
no, it's less than
Less than a half a
Yeah,
percent.
it's 50 basis points.
Okay.
This is 17 basis points. Now, on the
Wow.
on the interest side of it, they did about average. They did 37 basis points, but they lost $10,000 in value. So this portfolio, as you could see right here, the net income from the portfolio of $5 billion was only $9 million.
Wow.
Now, not
Which the
everybody,
government can
not
spend
everybody,
in
will,
a-
yeah,
in a
but not
drop of
everybody
a
will
hat.
go to an annual report and analyze it. But I'm a financial guy. I've done this my whole life, so I know how to do it.
And does this help you
And
sleep at night?
basically, what we're saying here is that this is why it shouldn't be one of those positions that, yes, it is down ballot, but it deserves a lot more visibility. Because most people don't really know how the treasurer is functioning. This is certainly a substandard performance.
Well, they should have at least earned the average, at least, right?
Well, I think when you take a look at the two components, the income, the interest earned was market rate, but it's the same rate that you and I can get at any bank. They have a chief investment officer and deputy treasurers that analyze and study and make these decisions, and they're doing no better than you and I can. But the issue really is here that they lost $10 million in value. So the income produced was only $9 million on a base of $5 billion.
Wow.
Here's the real issue here. The treasurer of the state of Arizona is not just the keeper of the funds as they come in, it's taxpayer money. States do not have the opportunity to print money like the federal government has been doing and is doing, and screws up everybody's economics. But Ray, what happens is that these monies come in monthly, quarterly, and for income tax once a year, and they all help to run the state. Now the state has gazillion dollars worth of expenses that they go through, and what you do, and you see it all the time on the TV. Make your money work for you. And when there's excess funds, I know Bob knows this, I don't have to, I'm just repeating what he's saying. Invest it, make more money, and the more the merrier, because what does that do? It allows us as taxpayers to have greater expenditures for things that our society may need.
Or less taxes.
But that was the other thing, less taxes, more bang for the buck, wouldn't you say, Bob?
Right. But let me be clear. This is what I see. I see that there's a lack of communication to we the people, right? Now, I don't think that there's many people in the state that know this. I'm presenting it based upon a statement in the annual report. What I would like to see is what we do as publicly held company CFOs. There's a requirement, like I said, it's called management discussion and analysis. That would make things so clear to any citizen who wants to read it. You don't have to get into an analysis of the numbers to find out why they lost $10 million.
And Bob, one of the other things that is so clear here, we're going to have some people here. One, we're going to have a candidate running for the state senate, and another candidate running for governor. They need to see these things right now. Ray, the Arizona legislature is battling for the budget for next year.
Which should be the first thing they do.
It should, not
It
the
should be,
last. It
yeah.
should be the first.
Yeah.
But at any rate, so this is a very powerful job, and the things that you're proposing, Bob, would certainly help the legislature understand
No doubt.
the tax rate and as well as the expenditures that they would be appropriating.
Well, right now we're doing very well financially as a state. And a lot of people think, well, you know what, we don't need to focus really on it. We got the money and we really don't need to.
It's always been that way, though, right?
No, I'll tell you what, the pendulum swings.
Yes.
It goes back and forth. And if you are not on the ball and you don't see things like that, that can be eaten away. Now, over the last year, we're at what? Arizona's about a 10% inflation. So what you're saying is
10.9 last month.
10.9. So we're losing quite a bit of money.
To inflation, yes.
Yeah.
Especially
Well,
since we're not even making 1% of it.
Well, that's where the management really comes in. Now, also in the annual report, there's a statement that during the 3-year period, the money on deposit for the treasurer to invest has gone up exponentially. If you break that down, the number that is presenting is just about equal to the growth in the economy of Arizona. So they're not really outperforming, they're just riding that big wave of economic growth.
And when that wave drops,
You have to be
and
ready
the
to
tide
manage.
goes out.
You have to be ready to manage that
Right.
decline. Now, there's another thing that I wanted to point out. As we analyze where the money is invested, right, 18% of it is invested in equities, that's market securities. And I don't think I put any money into equities because we've seen such enormous swings where gains that people made on their 401ks up to 2008 were totally wiped away. And it took them years to get back to where they were in 2007, 2006. I wouldn't do that with the taxpayers' money. I would make no equity investments. I'd put them all in secure, interest rate fixed vehicles.
Now, as the treasurer, do you have that ability to make that decision?
The treasurer is the head of the investment committee, and there's a committee, and she has 2 people that she can appoint, and then there's other members of the committee that jointly make the decisions.
It's interesting.
But she's the treasurer is the chairman of the investment committee.
So, Bob, how do we get in touch with you? How can we support your campaign? Give it to us, your email address, and what you need.
Well, here's probably the most important thing I need now is that I've cleared the hurdle of being on the ballot.
That's a big hurdle.
Yes, I got 3,000 signatures more than the requirement. So I'm
7,000, yeah.
Yeah, 7,004 is the requirement, and I got 10,004.
Congratulations.
So I'm safe in there. But I'm a clean election candidate. And what clean election candidate means is that we, the people, fund my campaign. But in order to get the money that's available as a clean election candidate, I need $1,500 $5 contributions.
So
And I would really
$1,500 So all it is $5.
$5, and I can't use that money. That money has to stay frozen in my account.
Right. It doesn't go to you. It goes
Right.
towards
Into the
public funding
public
of
funding.
the election.
Yeah.
So
When-
only 1,500.
And by the way,
$5.
if in fact for some reason Bob would back out, that $5 is refundable back to the person.
That's right.
that,
That's why we
gave it
have to
him.
keep very detailed records on everyone who contributed $5.
I mean, I've given money in the past.
Now,
and
can you
got
give it to
back.
multiple candidates? Say you're running for treasurer.
You can
somebody's
only
running
give it to
for-
clean election candidates. So yes, you can give $5 to every clean election candidate.
All right. So what's your website?
Okay. Bob for treasurer.
That was easy.
Yeah, that's it.
Is that
The
.com?
website is, of course. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, that goes without saying.
Well, it could be .net. It
The
could be .org.
www, of course, is the prerequisite, and it's bobfortreasurer.com. And at that website, you'll see a tab that's called Donate 5. And that's how you do it.
Wow.
That's probably the cleanest way to do it.
Now, you know, Ray, a lot of people don't get excited about this. This is not one of those glamorous jobs, I can assure you. But as a geek myself, having been an accountant and an auditor, he's on the right track, believe me, because somebody's got to keep an eye on the treasury of the state of Arizona.
Absolutely. This people forget this is our money. It's our
is.
money.
There's
It's not.
You just don't hand
billion
it over.
dollars that flow through this
How
department.
much?
53 billion.
Billion.
Because
With
remember,
a
it's,
B? Wow, that's a lot of money.
yeah, because it's not only Arizona taxpayers' money through sales tax, income tax, corporate tax, but there's money that comes in from the federal government. You think about the COVID and other
Education
yeah.
funds from
That
the
comes
national
into the
government.
state, and it's
So
it's
bobfortreasurer.com. You need $5. He needs 1,500 people to give $5. Now, can people give more separate from that, or can you take
No, he
additional
can only
donations?
take
yes.
five
There
one
is-
time from one individual.
There's another donation vehicle. It's called seed money. Now, seed money is the only money that I can spend on the campaign. So when I pay for my banner, pay for a table at an event, pay for the palm cards, the business cards, it all is funded through donations to seed money. And I'm really gratified that there's been so many people that have contributed seed money, so that I could meet the expenses, have the palm cards, go to the events, have the banners, have the tablecloths. So it
well,
can only
thank you.
do that through seed money.
Well, thanks so much for coming onto the show.
And give him a good look. See, he's a lot of people don't.
Why are you
like
looking
this
at me?
'cause-
Tell them.
Well, I will. But I just wanted to say a lot of people think that Bob and I are geeks, and we probably are. But it's a necessary geek. Okay, so I'll be the geek. You be the state
Yeah,
treasurer.
and just keep in mind, look, the reason why I ran for clean elections, certainly I'm a highly compensated CFO. But raising money in the private markets with the big investors, if anybody could look me in the eye and say, they're not expecting a quid pro quo, well, then you've never been there. So what I'd like to do is have we, the people, fund this campaign, and I owe nobody anything.
There you go.
And we like
Anyway, give Bob for treasurer a good look-see, and we're going to take a short break here, and we will be back, and we're going to have a couple of people running for some really high-caliber offices here in the state of Arizona, like governor and state senator as well. So tonight's our candidate night, so we'll see you on the other side. More to come.
Are you tired of the long lines and impersonal service you get at the post office? Well, we have a solution for you. Pack Mail is an all-in-one mail center conveniently located in the Fry Shopping Center at 3218 East Bell Road, right here in Phoenix. Owned and operated by Arizona residents Mark and Vicky Battaglia, you can be sure of getting personalized professional service. They will pack, crate, freight, and ship your items anywhere in the world. They work with all the major carriers like DHL, UPS, USPS, and Federal Express. Need an address for your home business or startup company? They have P.O. boxes on site where you can receive and pick up your mail anytime. And their knowledgeable and courteous staff will find a way to ship that awkward or heavy item. You can even have your packages picked up and delivered for a small fee. Their motto is, if you can imagine it, we can ship it. Drop in on the good folks at Pack Mail and let them do the work for you. Pack Mail can be reached at 602-971-2300 or email at info@weshipphoenix.com. That's Pack Mail, 602-971-2300 or info@weshipphoenix.com.
Do you have a face for radio? I know I do. And when I found how easy it was to get started in an interesting, informative radio program, I jumped at the chance. Since AM radio program is being replaced by podcasting, you can even create your own programming from your home. Hi, I'm Ron Lutters, better known as Uncle Ronnie on my Fighting Back radio program. If you have a business, a hobby, or a passion, and you would like to share that with others, then podcasting may be for you. With a strong desire, some talent, and a deep passion, you too could get your radio message on your very own radio programming on Hub Radio Phoenix Network. We have one of the best broadcast engineers in Arizona to help you every step of the way. If you are interested in the enjoyment of podcasting, call me at 602-677-1496 to discuss the effective and affordable way to own your very own radio program. That's 602-677-1496.
News talk, current events, and political commentary. And now, back to the show.
Well, welcome back to the show, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. And Disney would be mad at me for saying that because they think that's not inclusive enough.
Who cares what they think?
At any rate, we have wonderful Heather here, and she's from Pennsylvania. And then we have Mr. Ed at the bottom of your screen, and his name is actually Mr. Andy, and he's really not a horse. But they've been doing some work. We had them on several weeks ago, as many of you know, and they have an organization called Verity Vote. And a lot of people have tried to contact us and say, you mispronounced the name of their business, and they think it's Verify the Vote. So, Heather, if you could tell us the name and exactly what it means.
Yeah, so you are correct. It is Verity Vote. And we chose that word partly because of the broader meaning of verity, right? Truth and
Truth, justice, and the American way.
yeah, and I'm a big fan of Latin, so we were trying to come up with a name for our organization that sort of captured what we were trying to express and incorporated a little bit of Latin in there. So that's how we came up with the name. But you are correct; it is Verity with a T, Verity Vote.
Yes, thank you for that.
Our website is verityvote.us.
There you go.
Well, Heather, Andy, welcome back to the show. We have been so excited to have you on here, especially after we received the report directly from the Attorney General here in the state of Arizona.
Mark
We have been waiting with bated breath, and we were wondering why we weren't getting regular updates about what's going on. And it's so great that you're here because you're going to clarify a lot of things that I know a lot of people originally, when they saw the headlines, they were very upset about it. We got a little bit more information. Ron, you and I happen to have breakfast
with Mark Brnovich on Friday.
Brnovich, he is the Attorney General here. He is also running for the Senate for Arizona against Mark Kelly. But he gave us a little bit of information, but we wanted to come directly to you because if anybody knows what's going on, Heather, it is you and Andy, and thank you for being here.
So if you don't mind, give us a brief review of what we did last time, or what you did, what we discussed last time, because it was doggone staggering. It was shocking. So tell us a little bit about what happened last time and how Brnovich's report differs from what you found out.
Well, essentially, last time we reported the defects in the chain of custody. We went through some of the flow of how ballots get there and how it's different in a Dropbox situation where ballots are moving from a Dropbox where you drop them off and someone else has to pick them up and bring them to the central facility, and how that compares to a precinct-based approach where you have a building that basically only about 1,000 people go into to vote. They're your neighbors. They're workers that tend to show up year after year and recognize you. And you can be pretty sure that you're a neighbor before they even check you in. And of course, they go through the extra effort of checking you in and verifying your identity rather than just signing a piece of paper that moves through somebody else's hands.
Right. What's also nice too is when you vote in a precinct, not only are there your neighbors and your friends, but you know what? If you're wearing clothes that maybe the top doesn't match the pants, they'll point that out to you. Those shoes don't go with that outfit.
Yes,
because they're friendly neighbors.
And they are our friendly neighbors. And would you like me to bring you a bagel?
No, you know what? That's the best way, because
of course it is.
Like you said, Andy, they know who you are. If somebody looks suspicious, you're like, wait a second, I don't recognize you. Are you new to the area? And you can start that conversation as well.
And Ray, I think it's really important for everyone to realize the closer you are to your own neighborhood, the closer you are to resolving problems. I can't pick up the phone and call the President of the United States and say, I have a problem, can you deal with this? Senators are even difficult as are representatives, unless you're PCs, as you and I are. Mm-hmm. That's a precinct committeeman, ladies and gentlemen. But you'll get to speak to actual people and find out what's on their mind and what's bugging them and what's not bugging them. If I may, I want to take just a second. I pulled up something today. Maybe you have seen it, Heather and Andy. This was a report that came across from Gwinnett County, Georgia. And it said on October 11th, this is the Dropbox issue here, and it's the same in other states, as you probably are aware. 270 people went to a single Dropbox. Remember that number, ladies and gentlemen, 270. But 1,962 ballots were recorded as deposited in that box. That's kind of strange, Ray. I did some of the numbers, and it means that everyone that dropped a ballot in dropped 7 ballots if you averaged it out per person. Now, we know that that could mean the shenanigans, right, Heather?
Absolutely. Now, Heather, I'm curious, because when we had breakfast with Mark Brnovich, the Attorney General here, he had mentioned that, yes, he saw some discrepancies in chain of custody, and they were about 20%. But you came up with a very different figure.
Yeah, for sure. We looked at every single form, and we, as we mentioned when we were on the show before, we went through a painstaking process with a bunch of volunteers so that we could take these handwritten forms and, convert them into a digital form so that we could do the analysis that we wanted to do with them. And then we went through a pretty comprehensive quality control process to make sure that we had accurately represented all of those. And so when we submitted our report and our chain of custody issues to the Election Integrity Unit of the Attorney General's office, we were absolutely certain about the numbers that we submitted. And so we, obviously, Andy and I both read the interim report that Brnovich put out. And, we discussed it at length. And I think Andy has a pretty good explanation for what we think happened here.
Okay, good. We want to hear this.
Yeah, sure. So, what the Attorney General reported was that 381 early voting ballot transport statements were missing required information. Only 381 out of 1,895. And what we observed was the absolute complement of that. Just the opposite. That 1,514 lacked a ballot count, and 381 had a ballot count.
So where's the discrepancy then? I'm not understanding.
How did they do it? That sounds like a flip-flop.
It does. It does.
It's exactly a flip-flop. We have the same report for the total number of unique ballot transport statements, 1,895. But imagine a scale. You've got 381 on one side and 1,514 on the other side, and they just switched them. They just swapped the two numbers.
Wow.
Simple as that.
Have they been made aware of this yet?
We have told them via a couple of different channels. So hopefully they're observing that.
I'm curious your thoughts, Andy and Heather. because we discussed this too. Now, Mark Brnovich, he's a very likable guy. I got to tell you, he likes to joke around. He seems like just a regular guy, and he laid off a list, quite extensive list of the things in his accomplishments, including arguing in front of the Supreme Court of the United States for some issues. His name has been on, different court cases, v. Brnovich or Brnovich v. And he had mentioned, and he wanted to reassure everybody, this isn't over yet. Now, I'm not sure if he meant it's not over yet because I still want to have this go forward as I continue in my Senate race, or it's not over because I really believe that we have something come up. He did mention the Secretary of State, though, Ron.
Yes, he did. And that is a Democrat.
And what did he
Katie Hobbs.
exactly say?
Well, she's been, I guess the word I could use is malfeasant. She's really not done her job very well. And when she was in I believe she was a senator for a while as well, state senator, and she was very lackluster in that job as well. I was quite surprised that she won that election. And when I say that, recognizing the fact that there were a lot of discrepancies, Ray, in that election, and when I say that was another one of those things, I think Steve Gaynor on election night had actually won the election, the Republican. But as they kept counting and counting and counting, and I believe it was like 2 weeks, as I recall, in 2018, the numbers slowly turned, and Katie Hobbs won. And she is now running for governor of the state of Arizona as a Democrat.
And Ron, to my point is, he said that the wheels of justice, and especially in government, grind, and he used the word grind very slowly. So please be patient. There's still things coming down the way. In your review of that preliminary report, do you see that there's still openings for things like this to happen?
Well, I mean, so I think two comments about that. The first one is that, because we met with folks on the criminal side from the Attorney General's office, right, that we're doing like the criminal investigation, but we also met with the folks on the civil side, right, the folks at the Election Integrity Unit.
Well, you had Jennifer Wright. Did you meet with Jennifer?
Exactly, yes.
And which one was she? Which side?
The civil side, the procedure side, on sort of like the, what can we do better to make this more efficient side.
Right.
And so, and what they made clear to us is that they are separate entities. And so, we provided a copy of all of these early voting, transport statements to the criminal side. But then when we spoke with Jennifer Wright, she pointed out that she did not have them and could not exchange information with the criminal side, that we needed to give her a copy herself, which of course we were more than happy to do. But both the criminal side and the civil side, as that's how we're categorizing them, indicated that they do not share information with each other. So, everything in this interim report seemed to come from the civil side, right, from the Election Integrity Unit. And so I'm hopeful that some of the other issues that we did report to the Attorney General's office, while they were not included in this interim report, we certainly hope that they are continuing to follow up on them, and that something will happen. We're hopeful.
Well, thank you for that. I've got a couple of comments here. I've got the thing printed out here, Ray. I'll share it with you. We haven't had a chance to look at it.
Yeah.
But one of the things that did come out, it said that they did find serious vulnerabilities, but it's not alleging that mass fraud occurred. Now, the absence of saying that mass fraud occurred doesn't mean that it did.
Well, remember the definition of fraud and the bar that you have to reach to get that, let alone mass fraud. So I think what they're saying is there's a lot of issues, but at this point we can't prove fraud on any level.
For instance, Trump lost the state by approximately 10,500 votes. And yet we know that there were 11,000 non-citizens of Arizona that voted in the election.
But Ron, do you think that the bar that has to be reached is that word fraud? Is that what has to be reached?
Yes, I believe it does.
Or,
in a legal sense,
or
yes.
Is it any statute that wasn't followed, any law that wasn't followed, any break of chain of custody that wasn't followed? Do those things?
Well, if it was malicious, that's the thing.
What,
you see, 11,000 people could have voted, and they said, well, because here's one of the problems, Heather and Mr. Ed. I keep looking at the horse on the screen. But Andy, is that in Arizona, and this is really strange, there are two ways that you can register to vote. One, you can use the state form, in which it's required that you proof of citizenship.
Mm-hmm.
There is a federal form in which you do not have to prove citizenship.
Well, not until after the close of the session and 90 days have passed, because we just passed
They just
that law.
changed that.
Yeah.
But what it means is that people could in fact vote, and the only thing they had to say is, yes, I sign an affidavit, yes, I'm eligible to vote. They don't have to show any proof.
Well, I'm curious, Heather and Andy, because you've been studying this quite a bit. Is that threshold that they have to prove fraud, or they just have to show that it wasn't done correctly, and if it wasn't done correctly, you can't certify something that wasn't done correctly? Where does that stand?
Well, I guess that's certainly open for debate, but I personally feel like election laws are in place for a reason, right? They are to give people confidence in the results of an election. And so when you have a situation where, certain jurisdictions are not following the laws, right, then it's no surprise that people have no confidence in the outcome. Mm-hmm. So, let's look like a good example here. So one of the things that we pointed out in our initial report on the chain of custody was that the form itself that Maricopa County was using, right, did not meet the minimum requirements of law in the state of Arizona, right? So the form itself was defective and deficient in terms of what the requirements were. We pointed that out. And so we originally published this report the end of January, Andy, I think it is.
Yep, January 24th.
And so we did a public records request for the chain of custody documents that were part of the this recent very small municipal election that just kind of wrapped up. And what we found is that Maricopa County was using the defective form until March 1st, at which point they changed the form, updated it to address those defects that we pointed out, and then we're using a form that did in fact comply for the most part with what the law required. So,
interesting that one of the comments in that, it said the review had found instances of election fraud by individuals who have been or will be prosecuted for various election crimes. It stated that definitely in there. The will be prosecuted is a very interesting comment, Ray, in this report. And as Branovich told us at the breakfast, he doesn't want to be really super succinct because he doesn't want to give information so that the opposition can bolster themselves up, and or even as he was talking about the Arizona bar getting involved in these issues and complaints against him to actually take his license away.
Okay, so I don't really know the answer to this question, but maybe Andy, you or Heather might know. Say, for instance, you have the Super Bowl, right? And people are playing, and there's a couple of players that inflated the ball maybe bigger, or they did some things that they shouldn't be doing, and one team won, but they found out that all these things happened to help that team win, whether it's insider trading or whatever. What would happen to that trophy? Ron, do you know?
The way things go in America today, nothing will probably happen to anybody. We have two justice systems in America. The one that would apply to you, Mr. Michaels, and to me, Mr. Lutters, but not to a politician.
Well, the things that you're pointing out are so exact, and they're so important in that if the actual form that was printed by one of the largest, I think the largest county in the country, and it started off by having the wrong form, then anything that follows is defective because it's all based around that original form. Am I missing something?
Well, maybe one thing that you could focus on a little bit here is that in our report we identify some election laws and the responsibilities that the recorder has in order to carry out the election. And there were failures there in producing a proper form. There were failures in training and monitoring the staff to make sure that they really counted these ballots and kept a valid chain of custody. And so unwinding the ballots from that process is very difficult. And I don't see a way there myself. But looking at the people who were supposed to have trained and made promises to the people of Maricopa and said, hey, I mean, those people at one level have to just, feel a little bit of shame that they didn't fulfill their promise. And then, maybe there are legal ramifications for those failures.
Well, here's one of the things that the report said, and this is what you're alluding to, I believe, is we uncovered multiple violations of ballot transportation procedures, including 381 forms from 1895 early voting ballot transportation statements that had missing required information. That in itself, based on what I had told you earlier about what was going on in the drop boxes in the state of Georgia, where they had a small number of people drop a large number of ballots. I think that's one of the things we're claiming. And then they go say, in other words, it's possible that somewhere between 100 and 200,000 ballots were transported without proper chain of custody. And your report that we read, I believe your report is that over 700,000 ballots did not have proper chain of custody. That's one of the big issues we're looking at right now.
Yeah, so that kind of goes back to the whole idea that they swapped it, right? So the 381 number that you mentioned,
yes,
that was actually the number of forms that were properly filled out, right? And so I think they just sort of swapped the two, right? So there were 1,514 transport statements that were incomplete in that they did not have a ballot count. And so when you look at the interim report there, and he reports that 381 were defective, I think it's the opposite of that, right? So
yes, and I believe you're right.
Ron, I want to point this one out for Heather and Andy too. It says the bottom line, this is the reporter who's writing on this, the AG has not identified even a single instance where a ballot was accepted with a non-matching signature or signature that was later cured, they added. Now, on this show, Ron pointed out one that you hadn't even seen where we had a side-by-side ballot and the signature was different.
The same name, but different signatures.
We showed that here on the show. So I don't know where...
So I think he's talking about two different things there. So okay. I believe that in that interim report where he's talking about the signature verification, he's referring to the signatures on the affidavit on the envelope when the ballot is returned, right? So he's talking about, that comment is about the signatures on the envelopes. And so, Dr. Shiva did a really pretty incredible job of analyzing that by taking signatures from other places and comparing them. And so, I would say that whoever that reporter was who said that probably ought to take a look at the study that was done.
Well, they're very disingenuous. Who wrote this? Do you know?
Well, there's a few people here. Bill Gates, and it's not the billionaire Bill Gates.
No,
It's
no.
the board of supervisor. I believe he's the chairman now. And Stephen Richer, who was not even, he was running in the election.
Yeah, he had no.
And now he's been testifying as though he is an expert on the election and almost as though he was there when it was going on, and he wasn't. He was only a
wrote the
candidate.
report about the previous election and all of the issues there. But it says this report is the latest of a series of investigations into Arizona's election that have failed to find evidence of substantial fraud in the election, I guess is what they're saying. I don't have it. In the state, which voted for President Biden and Democrat Senator Mark Kelly. So, I think what they do is as most major media outlets do, they'll try to spin it in the way that promotes their narrative as opposed to what you two are doing and what Verity Votes is doing, which is showing the facts and having people decide, you look at the facts, here's what we found, you make the decision.
Yes. It's sort of the scientific way. You go into this and you just investigate and see where things fall out, without a preconceived notion.
Or an agenda.
Or an agenda.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you just find the facts and report them. And what we've done in this case is collect all the documents so that anybody can see them. And we've given these to a bunch of people to evaluate them. It's a lot of documents, and nobody who we've challenged or asked to go through them has gone through them and reported anything back yet, because it's a big lift. But we'd be happy to have other people do that.
Oh, yes. And we do appreciate you for doing this, because this is the most confusing election, at least in Arizona. And Ray, there's several seats, I believe, could have possibly changed hands.
But Ron,
during this
only if you
election.
want it to be confusing. I mean, it's
no,
pretty...
it's not confusing to me.
Yeah.
I mean, the numbers that Verity Votes has come up with, and once again, the numbers I said were doing the same basic thing in Georgia.
Yeah.
There was no chain of custody. These ballot boxes were open to the public anytime. I knew when they first started this, I got a call and somebody says, "What do you think of this?" I said, "I think this is the most idiotic thing I've ever heard."
Yeah. Well, I know we're looking forward to the movie coming up with Dinesh D'Souza. Do you know when that is released?
It's supposed to be May. It's going to be in theaters May 2nd, the first week of May.
Wow.
Well, Ray, we won't get to see it because they just closed the theater right across the street from
I'm sure
our
we'll
studio.
find another one. I'm sure we will. Thank you so much for coming on. Can we please see you again?
Yes, we would love to. Thank you for having us again.
All right, great to have you here.
And thanks for joining us. And we'll be right back after these messages. Stay tuned.
This is Peter Martin, financial advisor in the Phoenix metropolitan area. When I seek the truth about what's going on in the world, I listen to Hub Radio Phoenix.
News talk, current events, and political commentary. And now, back to the show.
Well, welcome back. I am Ron Lutters with Ray Michaels and
Hello,
Anthony
everyone.
Kern, and he's running for the state senate. And we want to thank you all for watching Backstreet Gossip. Tonight we have one of my favorite guys, because I remember when he was first running, and this guy was amazing. He went to every meeting I think there ever was in the world. No matter where I was, Anthony Kern was there running for office, so he really wanted it. And he's running in the new district, Ray, 27. So tell us where that is, Anthony.
Well, that is in, thank you for having me, Ron and Ray. Appreciate you guys. And that is in Phoenix, in Glendale. So the northern border would be Happy Valley Road. The southern border would be Peoria. And then you have the western border would be the 101 freeway. The eastern border would be 43rd Avenue. In a nutshell, now there is a little tail that goes down in the southwestern part of it.
Oh, the old gerrymander trick, huh?
Yeah, the old gerrymander. So it goes down into by the Coyote Stadium.
Get a little closer to the mic.
Sorry.
So you're just a little bit north of what was a
20.
great mall, Metro Center.
Oh, the Metro
Just
Center.
a little bit north of there.
Well, Metro Centers really went downhill, as we all know. In fact, I think they're about ready to close it down. They're
Yeah.
building some type of a bridge to nowhere near there. It looks like it's going right on top of Metro Center. It's kind of weird, right off the I-17. Anyway, there's a lot of methadone clinics around there and all that, so it's really went downhill.
Wow.
Yeah.
God,
Well,
that's sick.
when that opened up, and that was, I think, 1970.
Yeah, 72,
yeah.
maybe 73.
That was the largest mall in the country at the time, and kind of a little bit far out from where most people were living at the time. You did have the community, of course. Glendale's been
Yeah.
there for a long time, but it was spectacular. I mean, the size of it, an inner circle, an outer circle. They had everything
Right.
over there, and it was really, really nice. But as things go,
Well,
City
back in the
bigger,
day, Ray, I'm
yeah.
going to tell you, because you know this stuff. I mean, I don't have to tell you, but back in the day, somebody went to Cortez High School, which is only about less than a mile west of there. Alice Cooper.
yes,
Mhm.
yes, he did.
Yeah.
There's a lot of famous
Cortez.
people. Yeah, did he
Cortez
go to
High,
Cortez
yeah.
High?
Mhm.
I see him quite a bit. He lives in the Arcadia area. He goes shopping all the time. Regular guy. Great fun with him. So
So
Anthony,
he doesn't eat bats anymore.
no. It was just,
Something
I think it
about
was
bats.
just
No.
something with
I don't
chicken.
think he ever ate
No, I
bats
don't
unless it
think-
were
something-
baseball
something to do
bats.
with bats,
He used
yeah.
a toothpick, as a baseball.
I don't know that much about Alice Cooper, but I remember
So-
hearing something about that.
So Anthony, you are now running, and this is an exciting time here. We met on the campaign trail over the last time, and quite a few things have changed, including how people are paying attention now. Before you used to have a lot of people on the couch, but now people have actually risen up. If there was one thing that happened during that whole COVID thing, was that people were watching what was being taught to their children on the computer. And people were seeing that maybe the way that the media is portraying things really wasn't true. And maybe the way that we were voting and how they just kept expanding this didn't work out the way that we thought. So a lot of
And
people...
the other people watching their children be educated or indoctrinated.
Yeah, it's almost as though it went from a season of hibernation to where the mama bear has now awoke and sees that their kids and that their families are under attack. Can you tell us a little bit about what motivates you in this new campaign?
Well, thank you for that question, Ray. As a Trump-endorsed candidate, President Trump endorsed my race back in November. One thing he did that was very well done is he exposed the media. He exposed what we've known for years, the lying media and the left, the deception of the left, and frankly the deception of a lot of rhino Republicans in the Republican Party. So what's motivated me is to save our country. We've got to save our state. We've got to save America, and we have to get involved. And so I think what Trump did was expose a lot of things, and it opened up everybody's eyes. And now the left is trying to sexualize our children. They're pushing transgender, on our children. They're going behind parents' backs. They're saying parents are terrorists.
Critical
it's
race
just
theory.
critical race theory. Insanity is out there. We just had a thing in Peoria Unified School District where one of the teachers, it's on my social media, where one of the teachers was sent out an email saying if you see a kid in white, teal, or purple, I think it was, recognize them, acknowledge them, because it's National Transgender Awareness Day. Now they're going behind these parents' backs and they're doing this to these little elementary kids. And frankly, there's something in me that rises up. There's not just mama bears out there. There's papa bears too. And something in me that rises up and says, you're not going to do this to our children. Enough is enough. And one thing we have that they don't have is truth. God created them man and woman. God created them male and female. And that's it. The left didn't create humanity. Jesus Christ did. And frankly, I'm going to stand for truth. And in my view, the Bible is truth, and that's it. And so that's why I'm running.
Well, when you say that we've now kind of see this has been going on for years.
Been going on a long time.
This indoctrination. When we were in school, Ron, you think back, we were worried about reading and writing and arithmetic. That's right. And
Not
the
arithmetic, arithmetic.
Yeah, three R's. And we weren't exposed to this. But now there is such controversy over a place like Disney. Disney is upset because the state of Florida wants to protect kindergarten, first, second, and third graders from being exposed. And they're in an uproar.
That was kind of a classic word you used there, exposed.
Well, I don't understand. I mean, that was the safe space. That was the place that you can take your kids
Well, Ray, we
for
used to
adventure and for good, wholesome entertainment. I think that Walt would be rolling over in his grave if he wasn't frozen. But he'd be rolling over in his grave thinking, they're using my name. This is my name.
I know, and it was a good name. Ray, when we were children, we always had an American flag in every classroom.
Of course.
And we started the day off with a pledge and a prayer. Imagine that. And I think it kept pretty much, we were, nobody questioned anything and as a youth about sex and orientation. I mean, it was the furthest thing from people's minds. It looked more, well, what are we going to do when we go out for recess, and who are you going to have on your 15-minute baseball team, for recess? And today, all of this nonsense, the thing that really bothers me is this critical race theory stuff. Now, I grew up in a lily white neighborhood, but I never thought of anybody being inferior because their skin color was different.
Well, yeah, the real racists are the Democrats.
Yeah, for
honestly,
sure.
they use the smoke screen of, we're not racist, those bad Republicans, but they're study your history. I mean, look at who wanted to secede from the Union because they wanted to keep slavery intact.
And
that was a Democrat
Ku Klux
Party.
Klan was the same thing.
Democrat Party. So the Democrat Party is really good at trying to deflect, but we need to speak truth. What is really going on?
This whole concept of racism really, really upsets me because I have never felt that anybody was inferior because of skin color.
You mean like Larry Elder, the face of white supremacy?
Yeah, face of white supremacy.
Larry Elder, or Candace Owens, the face of white supremacy.
But even more than that,
if you don't know who those are, you got to look them up and then you'll understand the humor.
Even more than that, the thing that really bothered me recently is the Pino president in name only. That's what we call him.
That's the right letters. Yeah. He actually invented that.
Any rate, Ray, the first thing he says when there's a vacancy, we're going to have a black woman. And then she can't define what a woman is.
So there's a debate on whether he actually chose correctly.
Yeah, well, there's that legally.
Because if you can't define what a woman is, how do you know that he actually did what he said he was going to do?
Most people didn't catch this. I caught it during her opening session. She's talked about promoting black birthing people.
Oh, you don't want to get me going on that.
No.
Say stuff that
because we're all Americans.
You know what? I did.
The bottom line is she, in my opinion, I don't care how many degrees she has up on the wall. She is absolutely not qualified. She is not looking at the Constitution the way the Constitution needs to be looked at. Our founders said the courts in the land are supposed to look at the Constitution, and that is it when they make a ruling. And the Supreme Court hasn't done that in a long time. This is what they were afraid of, is that the courts have become politicized. And that lady, I don't care, and I don't care, like I said, how many degrees she has on the wall. She, in my opinion, is absolutely not qualified. Shame on those 3 Republicans, rhino Republicans that voted for her.
What was the point?
Let's name who they are. Mikowski, Collins of Maine,
and they need to be
and Mitt
thrown
Romney.
out. I mean, picked up and thrown out of office by the voters. And we need to elect good conservative fighters in this time.
Now,
not
Anthony,
Republicans, good
Anthony,
conservative
I want to get into a lot of the local politics now. You served as a member of the House. Mm-hmm. You are now running for the Senate, and it's because of a certain individual, and we'll name him Paul Boyer. Paul Boyer is a Republican senator that is another Pino type. The guy votes.
Well, can you just say
Democrats.
that he's a senator that has an R at the end of his name?
He's a Democrat senator with an R by his name. He is, and I want to get into this a little bit. I know you're following some of this. the budget is a real process, and as you said, we probably need to start the budgeting at the
Yeah,
beginning
I
of a
wanted to
session.
ask Anthony that. So the budget is the main reason why everybody gets together, right? I mean, this is one of the main things that the legislature does.
They're
It
required
is
by law
actually the
to
only
deal
thing
with
that
this
they're
issue.
required to.
Okay, so why don't we do that first?
Right.
mean,
We've asked
is
that
it-
question, in the time I served down there. I think the reason why is we were always waiting on the governor to put forth a budget first, and then we were going to look at that and then go from there.
Okay, so
now,
he should
I've
do
never
it
been
first.
in the intricate budget talks of the House and the Senate because usually that's leadership. So I've been on the tail end of the request. But here's the bottom line about budget: if there's money in there, and because of the Republican-controlled majority in both the Senate and the House, there's been a surplus for the last 7, 8, 9 years. I mean, we're talking multiple millions, if not billions of dollars. So when there's money in the pot, they just are chomping at the bit to spend it. And I've always been one of the few fiscal conservatives down there that said, wait a minute, let's not spend the money. Let's look for ways to give it back to the people.
Yeah, or maybe not charge us as much.
Well, right. Or maybe stop some licensing fees or get rid of, barbers having to get, licenses. Or I heard something the other day that even yard sales are having to be licensed. And I don't know.
What?
Yeah, I don't know if that's in
Lemonade
Arizona.
stands next? Is that
Well,
right?
I
Well,
mean,
somebody's got the idea.
okay, so
I'm
you're
sure.
talking
but the
about
bottom line is if we have a surplus, there's a reason why. We're charging the citizens too much. Let's give it back to the people.
Yeah.
So the budget in the process, and with the majority, with the 1-vote majority in the House, 1-vote majority in the Senate, the budget is used as a weapon. It's used as a weapon instead of thinking of the people. Some senators, the one you mentioned, is thinking about promoting a specific group, a special interest, and the senator you mentioned is he's into education, and so he's not running again. He has bowed out of the race because he knew he could not win a primary. I was going to challenge him, and I filed in April to challenge him because I got tired of his nonsense, and I really was very upset about the audit and the subpoena that he was the lone Republican that voted against the subpoena.
And he killed the subpoena because
He
it
killed
was a
the subpoena.
15-15 tie,
Yep.
and ties
Sure did.
do not pass.
Yep.
Right.
And
They're defeated.
so that made it a national race, and I said no, he's not going to do that. So I decided to, and he saw the light. He's not going to run in the primary, but going on his way out, he's going to make it as hard and as impossible as he can for the Republican, the conservatives down there. And I think what he's doing right now is from my understanding, is he's holding up the budget because he wants millions of dollars to go into education. Well, he is a teacher, so why not put all this money in education, stand up for education, and possibly, I mean, it wouldn't surprise me if he's going to get promoted in the education.
And I
Well,
think
shame,
that's
shame
what
on him
I
and
think
shame
that's
on
what
everybody
his
else.
plan is.
If you're holding this up and you're not thinking of the people first, because it is a public servant position. So shame on you.
And I'm 100% convinced of that. I've had him on when I was on a KFNX. I had him on several times, and he was always pushing school issues. That's okay, but let's face it, the schools take good care of themselves. They bring in lots of money. And ladies and gentlemen, in case you don't know where most of the money's spent, it's spent on administration and not
Yeah.
students.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the governor, Governor Ducey, love him or hate him, when I first got into office, he tried to do a classrooms first initiative where instead of the superintendents and the districts getting the money, we would flip that up and flip that over, and the teachers would get the money first. But the schools had just had a heart attack over that.
Union.
Oh yeah, it's all union run, and the
Red for Ed.
the bottom line is what we need in education is parental choice. That
Exactly.
would get rid of the transgender garbage that's going on, the sexualizing of our kids. That would get rid of all of this. If you level the playing field and you allow parents the full right and option to put their kids in whatever school they want, to take their dollars. It's not the state's dollars. They are tax dollars that come out of our pockets, and to take that money and say, I want my kid to go to a Christian school. I want my kid to go to a Catholic school. I want my kid to go to this charter school, or I want my kid to go to this public school.
Right.
Because not every public school out there is bad. We've got 3 of the top public schools in
And
the nation.
the really good thing about this is there are a lot of minorities that are stuck in really bad neighborhoods.
There are.
And their kids are very, very talented. Many years ago, I was an auditor, and I audited the state prisons. Okay, now these are bad guys, prison, right? I was amazed at the talent of some of these people. They had wood shop, a lot of them were artists, some of them were singers, really talented people. But they got off on a bad start. They need to get off on the right start.
Yeah.
I think even in school programs at one time, they called them fast start, didn't they? Trying to get these kids moving.
Head Start.
Head
was it?
Start.
Head Start, yeah, that was it.
So I don't know if you saw this article, but we have a lot of people moving into the state, and they're bringing in their children and their ideas, and they're disappointed with where they live, but they're coming here now, and they just figure that anything that they did back home should be acceptable here, right? All right, so I read an article about Washington State, and they are now offering a summer camp. Sounds good, right? We love summer camps. $400 to go to the summer camp, and during this time for your 12 or under boy, they will teach you how to be
A boy? Wow.
Yeah, can you imagine?
That's almost a bad word.
Yeah.
Ray sent me this. I finished the
so,
article.
so they will teach for $400 at this summer camp for boys 12 and under, teach you how to be a drag queen.
Bless their heart.
Isn't that
$400.
interesting?
Now, I was thinking about this, and I thought for a minute, well, you know what? It's in another state, really doesn't. If that's acceptable there, and they want to come over here, and then they complain that, wait a second, we did it over there, why can't we do it here? The states have to work together. And that's why I admire DeSantis in Florida, where he said, look, no, this is not happening. And when everybody tried to turn it around, including on mainstream media, including at the Academy Awards, that he said, this bill that you so-called call the Don't Say Gay bill says nothing about that.
Right.
You've created this narrative.
Yeah. One, there's a reason why people are moving here. So if you're moving here from a blue state, keep your politics at home, please.
Keep moving.
Yeah. If you can't do that, then just stay
We don't
away
want
from
you
the
here.
Or
parks.
you know what? Just come to the realization of why you
you're
left
moving
there.
here. You're moving here
and
because
why
your
you want
states
to
are
come
a
here.
cesspool. California is nothing but a cesspool right now. There are good people still there, but until that turns around, it's just going to continue to become a cesspool. California is already going the pedophilia route, and honestly, these drag queens and these people in Washington State that want to do that to our kids, in my opinion, they are nothing but perverts, pedophiles, and they want
Groomers.
groomers, whatever you want to call them. Freaks, I don't care. But again, somebody's got to stand up for these kids. Somebody's got to just stand up for these kids. And it's going to take a Ron DeSantis. It's going to take a Donald Trump. It's going to take an Anthony Kern. It's going to take a Paul Gosar. It's going to take, people that will stand up and fight for our kids. The mainstream America is not in favor of this. The left has the media. They've got Disneyland. They've got Hollywood. Okay, so we just keep pushing the narrative of truth. I will never back down. Like Trump says, I will never give up. I don't care. I will, just because people have an R behind their name doesn't mean that we should vote for them. And I know that's
Mitt Romney?
No, you're
well,
right.
like a
Susan
Mitt Romney
Collins?
or Susan Collins. They need to be ousted, and the voters need to stand up.
Murkowski?
Because this is about our
I
kids.
think Utah's about ready to toss.
If an adult wants to become a drag queen, okay, go for it. But when you're going after our elementary school kids, enough is enough, America. We better stand up. America is about the only country that is even allowing this to happen. Mm-hmm. And we are a laughing stock that we've got a woke military, we've got a woke education system, we've got a woke Disneyland, and enough's enough. Let's stand up and fight and elect fighters. I'm willing to take the hit in the media. I've already taken hits. You can't hit me anymore. But now what that has done is it's made me tougher. It's made me stronger. So bring it on. because you will not win. Why? Because I have Jesus Christ on my side.
Amen.
And I stand before him, and I'm going to speak his truth. And so the media can't counter that. And I'm not just saying that because I'm here on the radio. Look at my Trump speech. I said the same thing when at the Trump rally in January, that it is not Republicans and Democrats that are going to change this nation. It is Jesus Christ. It is people getting on their face.
It's changing the heart.
It's changing the heart. And until we do that, it's just not, we're going to, we have people that are bad people in both parties. We know what the Democrats are. And every time I heard Trump speak, I always said, when I would listen to him speak, he'd say, "Oh, those Democrats, those rascally Democrats." But then he would say, "Those Republicans," and I knew what he meant by that, because those are the, hey, how you doing? And, so we just got to elect good Republican fighters, and they'll get out there. And I think I see a lot of them on the ballot this time around. The ones that the media hates are the ones that you probably should be voting for.
That's right. Now, Ron, you have a poster out there, and I love seeing it every time I come in. And it's a picture of Donald Trump, and he says, "The Democrats aren't after me.
Right.
They're after you.
Right.
I'm just in the way."
Right. That's why it's a sad day when we elect a pedophile-loving justice to the United States Supreme Court for a lifetime appointment.
Who doesn't
That's a sad
understand
day in America where we're not banging. You remember what they did when Kavanaugh was there? Not only did they lie, but you talk about an insurrection in Washington, D.C. They tried to break down the doors of the Supreme Court building.
Yeah,
I
they
mean,
were
you remember
hauling
those
people out,
pictures?
yeah.
That was a real insurrection.
An interesting fact, while we're talking about this, and I didn't want to interrupt you, Anthony, because you were really on a roll there.
You guys got me going.
No, but that's what I want. I want to see people that are
passionate.
stalwarts.
If we don't stand up,
Yeah,
if we don't
passionate
stand
for-
up, if we don't stand up, we're going to lose our country. We are right there, and
There
we've
are
got to win.
Two things I want to talk about. One, for the first time in history, they took a poll of people in New York City. More people want to leave New York City than want to stay in New York City. That ought to tell you something about
And
the
they're moving to
devil's
Florida.
den.
Well, you know why? Because they said that if you can make it there, you can make it anywhere.
But there was Chicago. No, you're right. Frank Sinatra said that. Anyway, if Frank said it, had to be right. The other thing that I saw today, another poll, which was kind of freaky, 40% of Americans now believe that we're on the end of days.
Really? Wow.
40%.
All right. Interesting.
The end
All right,
of
Anthony,
days.
how do
End
we
of days.
support your cause? Tell us your legislative district once again.
Sure.
How we can get in touch with
Thank you, Ray. Yeah, my legislative district is district number 27.
27.
And I do have a primary challenger. I do not have a Democrat challenger in the general, so I just have to win my primary. For some strange reason, this person decided to file very last minute. Somebody tickled the ear, and I don't get it. But,
Where did this person come from?
great question. If we all remember Mr. Crawford, Michael Crawford's run for the sheriff in the last couple of years.
Wasn't he in Phantom of the Opera?
Yeah, I was going to
Michael
say, I don't
Crawford?
think it was the Phantom of the Opera fame.
Yeah, I'm not-
He ran
sure
for
about that,
he ran
but,
for sheriff against
anything's possible.
Jerry
Jerry Sheridan.
Sheridan.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
And
This is his wife.
This is his wife.
Wait, hold on. So his wife now comes in, but where did she come from?
Oklahoma.
Her mom and dad. I guess. I have no clue where she came from, honestly.
Just out of the blue, she
Out of
wants
the-
to run against
Out of
you,
the-
who have been endorsed by President
Been
Trump.
endorsed by President Trump. Been endorsed by Michael Flynn. Yeah,
And you've had national coverage too.
national. I mean, and I'm not.
Do we want to tell people why you had national coverage?
And it's right. You're right. I've been there January 6th. I was a Trump elector. On and on and on. And that's why I don't care about the media.
Okay, you didn't tell us the website though.
So the website is votekern.com.
VoteKern,
VoteKern.com.
KERN.
Yeah. The only thing I can assume is the rhino establishment Republicans are looking at races that for some reason they think that they can win.
So maybe
The difference here
Zuckerbuck's
is
behind that?
the primary voters are not going to put rhino Republicans.
Well, we got the Zuckerbucks. I think hopefully we've ended that. The Soros lot of contributions from those organizations.
Yeah.
You never
yeah, they
know.
got the money, but you know what? We've got the message, and we've got the truth. We need money. Access to capital, is good for when you're running elections, but we have truth, and truth is ours.
And we know that when you have a very, very strong candidate, there's always somebody putting a plant in to kind of try to mislead people too. We see that a lot.
Sure, and that would work in a general, but this is a primary. And I can tell you, in a primary, the like you said at the very beginning of this, people are engaged. I've seen LD meetings.
They're all Republicans.
I've seen LD meetings go from 20. You're lucky to get 25 people there. Now there's 300-400 people.
Yeah.
So people are engaged.
engaging, yes.
People are fed up. They know we're on a precipice in our nation. And, these Republicans that think they can just get in and play politics, that ain't happening. It's not going to happen in the primary. Why do you think Governor Ducey decided not to run for U.S. Senate?
Yeah.
Now, in a general, he probably had a chance. But in a primary, there's no way.
Okay, you've been listening to Hub Radio. Well, it's Hub TV USA now, Ray.
Yes, and
we're switching.
VoteKern.com. Yes.
Send
money, send money, send money,
Send money.
And volunteers.
And give him a look-see. I've known him since before he ran, and he's a good man. And I'd like to see you back there because you've always been a stalwart and a fighter, and I like that. Now, when we come back, we're going to ask you if you can name 7 people that are running for governor of Arizona. And if you can't name 7, maybe you can name 10. So we'll see you guys on the other side. Do not go away. We'll be right back.
Hi there, my fellow Americans. I'm Teddy Roosevelt Jr., and I may have lived in the 19th century and the early part of the 20th century, the American century. But when I want current news, I listen to Hub Radio Phoenix. It's just bully.
Are you tired of the long lines and impersonal service you get at the post office? Well, we have a solution for you. Pack Mail is an all-in-one mail center conveniently located in the Fry Shopping Center at 3218 East Bell Road, right here in Phoenix. Owned and operated by Arizona residents Mark and Vicky Battaglia, you can be sure of getting personalized professional service. They will pack, crate, freight, and ship your items anywhere in the world. They work with all the major carriers like DHL, UPS, USPS, and Federal Express. Need an address for your home business or startup company? They have P.O. boxes on site where you can receive and pick up your mail anytime. And their knowledgeable and courteous staff will find a way to ship that awkward or heavy item. You can even have your packages picked up and delivered for a small fee. Their motto is, if you can imagine it, we can ship it. Drop in on the good folks at Pack Mail and let them do the work for you. Pack Mail can be reached at 602-971-2300 or email at info@weshipphoenix.com. That's Pack Mail, 602-971-2300 or info@weshipphoenix.com.
News talk, current events, and political commentary. And now, back to the show.
And welcome back. Look at this young man sitting in the middle there with look at the teeth on him, a big smile. Wow. Okay, you've got Ray Michael, Ron Lutters, and a guy you probably haven't seen much of, but you will. And his name is Scott Neely. And he's running for
Arizona governor.
There you go. And,
I'm on the ballot.
What party?
I'm a Republican. But I'm a conservative first, of course.
As if you guys didn't know out there, because we've only had 2 Democrats on the show.
Well, now, Ron, you had mentioned that there were quite a few candidates. You know, when I signed on and I looked at all the candidates, we probably had 20 plus.
Oh, it's
21.
amazing.
There was
21 candidates.
21 candidates. But here's what you have to do. You got to get the signatures. If you don't get the signatures,
You're not on the ballot.
No.
And since it's a statewide election, as was said by Bob Latari,
right,
you need a lot of signatures.
How many signatures do you need?
You need 7,373. I got 10,457.
All right, so
that's a lot of work, isn't it?
It's a lot of work.
So now you're on. How many people actually made it to the ballot with
6.
the signatures?
On the Republican side, 6. On the Democrat side, 3. So there's 9 total.
9 total. Now, that was a long haul. That was a big mountain to climb.
That was a big mountain to climb.
But,
I entered the race January 19th.
That was a huge mountain to climb.
Huge mountain to climb.
All right.
Signed a letter of interest in June of last year, but didn't officially make my decision to enter the race until January.
Oh, wow.
19th.
You must have worked day and night for that.
Some of our viewers right now are saying, you know what? You got all these signatures, but we haven't heard your name. We haven't seen you. What's happening with this, and how were you able to infiltrate? How were you able to get into this race and get the support that you've gotten so far?
Well, I started January 19th at the Trump rally with 4 LED trucks that said, vote Neely for governor. And they also said, hey, Donald Trump, you need to get a hold of Scott Neely. He never got a hold of me. Yeah, he's with Kerry. But anyway, it was a mountain to climb. Nobody knew who I was. It was tough to get people to sign for a governor candidate when they've never heard the name.
Well, you can only sign for one.
Right.
You can't sign
Yeah, and
for multiple.
a lot of people had already signed for a lot of the other candidates.
Mm-hmm.
And some of the candidates got double the amount of signatures they needed just to kind of drown out the field and make sure that other candidates couldn't get their signatures. So it was a tough mountain to climb. It was
Boy,
tough
I
to
would
get all
say.
the signatures.
So
in that short of time, I'm
Yeah.
amazed.
So where did you, and I asked this to Bob Lettieri as well, you had to travel around the whole state.
The whole state.
I mean, was there a place that you said, oh my gosh, this is so beautiful, I didn't even know that this existed?
The Mecca for me was Prescott and Safford. That was the Mecca. That was the Mecca that hadn't been hit hard by the other candidates. And that was the Mecca
Prescott
that
is
delivered me
beautiful.
my
I know
signatures.
Safford very
Wow.
well, but it's not as beautiful as
Well,
Prescott.
we say Prescott.
Prescott, that's
Most
right.
people say Prescott.
I like to say Prescott because my name is Scott, but Prescott is how you're supposed to pronounce it.
It was amazing when I first moved here. I'm thinking, well, wait a minute. I used to work for a guy named Prescott. I was painting when I was in college. I was just painting houses and that. And I said, what do you mean Prescott? What's
All
that?
right, so you were, now how did you travel? Did you get in a car? Did you get a big
Well, I
van?
have
Did
a, I
you
have
put
a
your
crew
name on?
cab, diesel work truck, and I use that to get all around the state. I've been driving around the state for the last 17 years. I've put more than 500,000 miles on my work trucks over the years, doing infrastructure projects throughout the entire state.
So tell us your background. Where are you from originally? Tell us about how you got to Arizona and about what you do.
Originally, I'm from Hemet, California. I came to visit Arizona with a friend many, many years ago.
Tell us where
20
Hemet
years
is.
ago. Hemet's near San Jacinto. It's in between the mountains of Idlewild, Big Bear, and say Riverside, the city of Riverside, kind of in the.
Yeah.
It's near Temecula.
Well,
a lot of people know
our
Temecula.
engineer here is from Big Bear.
Okay. So Hemet, so Hemet is right across the way from Big Bear. Yeah, it's not too far.
Wow.
So you grew up in California.
Yes.
And you came out to Arizona when?
Came out to Arizona in 2000. Let's see, early 2002, and by mid 2002, I'd moved here. I loved it. Fell in love with it.
And you have a family?
I do have a family.
Okay.
Yeah, I have a son that's biological, and then I have 4 adopted kids through my wife
Oh,
that I love very
fantastic.
much.
That's
One,
great.
one is helping me run my campaign. Her name's Samantha. She's my campaign manager.
And I'll tell you what, she is everywhere
Yeah.
as well. It's
She's
great to
everywhere
have you
with me.
here.
Yeah.
And so, what is your background? Because I know a lot of people say, here's a governor position. You are a CEO of a state, and
Right.
like Bob said, there's billions of dollars that are going to be flowing through. You got a lot of things to look at. What is your experience?
So my experience is I'm running 3 small businesses currently. I grew up in a family that owned building material supply yards throughout Southern California. We had multiple locations. Unfortunately, the deals that were made between China and America kind of wiped our businesses out because you got Home Depot and Lowe's that made all the deals with China that essentially wiped out your mom and pop businesses
Right.
throughout Southern
Yes.
California. So we went under. I saw an opportunity out here. I saw a growing area and a place I could start a business and be successful, and I have been successful
That's awesome. So now this is in construction.
in construction.
All right. So you have to deal with, there's a lot of things, a lot of hoops to jump through when you need to get permits for things. You need to get, the land. Are you more involved in a commercial, residential?
I'm more involved in infrastructure type projects, specialty infrastructure type projects.
Is
where
this
it's
for
involving
city, counties, states?
City, county, states. I do subcontract work. I've been working on the border wall for the last 17 years off and on. Whenever there's a
Great.
Republican, and I'm usually working on it.
Wow.
I'm really interested in some of the things that you're saying here because permitting is one of the things that I think slows down
Slows the process.
the
yeah.
economy of any particular state. Years ago, I remember, and Ray, you probably do too, and it took years to get permits. There were places downtown, I recall, that might take 6 or 7 years. By the time you do that, the people
Well, just the
lost
carrying
interest.
costs. It's almost you can't do it. You can't do it.
So one of the things, how do you feel about
I feel like we need to deregulate because we need to streamline the process. We need to speed things up. And I also think that we need to start enforcing some of our laws too. For example, to do certain type of jobs, you got to have a contractor's license, right?
Sure. Yeah.
Well, there's a lot of people in this state that do business that are not contractors.
Yep.
A lot of those people are illegal aliens that are doing
And
business.
it kind of scares me when somebody's an electrician and they don't have a license. That scares me.
I don't do residential anymore because I can't compete with the illegal aliens that are doing business on residential. So I focus on commercial or infrastructure work.
In all fairness to Governor Ducey, he did streamline a lot of things. One of the things that always bothered me about, and you mentioned it earlier with one of our guests about barbers, and that is, if you're a barber, say in California
You
or
can transfer the
Illinois, or
license to
whatever,
Arizona. I
and
agree
you
with
come
that.
here and you have to wait, you have to wait for 6 months until there's a test going on so you
That's
can be a
something
barber.
I can agree on. With,
Why do you need to do that? I mean, somebody in California's hair is about the same. Only Ray doesn't get a haircut. He's got the longest hair of any.
Can't afford
anybody.
it.
Yeah, he can't afford it in
Got nice
this
Jesus
economy.
hair.
So, tell us about that. Tell us what your thoughts are on just about everything.
I like that
political.
Doug Ducey allowed you to bring your licensing from another state here to do business. So that probably brought a lot of people here. So that was a very smart move on Doug Ducey's part. I don't agree with him on a lot of things, but I do agree with him on that.
All right, so you win the election. You are now governor. What do you do in your first few days, few weeks, few months?
The first day that I step in office, I send the Arizona National Guard. I deploy them to the border on day one. Okay.
To do what?
On day one, we deploy them to the border so that we can use those folks and those forces to essentially process these folks so we can free up the border agents so they can actually do their job. We don't have them protecting the border because they're busy processing. We also need to build, I believe, 3 border barracks on the Arizona-Mexico border so we can keep a permanent National Guard presence there and keep them there permanently for processing, again, so the border agents can
And
actually
training, I
focus
might add.
on their jobs.
So
And
when
training
you
is
say be a little more specific on processing, what would that mean? Are these National Guard troops to be there to defend the border, or are they there
They're there in an assisted way. I mean, they can't necessarily arrest people, but they can help to process the people. They can help streamline it. They can get them on the buses, get them moving, get them to the places that they're supposed to go.
Back to Mexico.
Well, absolutely. Like
so
back
stay
to
in Mexico policy?
Stay in Mexico policy, absolutely.
Okay.
And do not get rid of Title 42, Biden, because if you do, that's going to be disastrous.
Right.
I did the numbers, Ray, today. I was really shocked in this Title 42 with the elimination. They're saying that we will, in the United States, have 18,000 people a day
Oh my gosh.
coming into the country. That's almost 7 million people a year coming into
We
this
can't
country.
even sustain the people that are here. How are we supposed to sustain?
And we got
millions
2.5 years more of the Pino, president name only. And so we're going to have 15, 16, 17 million more people in America? I don't think so.
And then they'll want to give them amnesty.
Oh, of course.
Now, Scott, we met at an event where we were learning about the Constitution. And I understand that you're a big fan of the Constitution.
Very big fan.
And, each state, as we all know, and we'll be having a show here that teaches a little bit more about this, is a sovereign state. And
We all have our own constitutions.
Right,
Yeah,
right.
individual constitutions.
And
we're
are
all
guaranteed a Republican form of government,
Right.
Yeah, so-
not a democracy.
Called
We
the
are not-
Arizona Republic for a reason.
Yeah, and so
Not that the Arizona Republic thinks that way.
Well, Tucker
The
Carlson,
newspaper,
we
yeah.
love you. We love your show, but we are not a democracy. We're a representative republic, constitutional government. So, so knowing what you know, and the federal government is going to come down. They're going to say, wait a second, that governor there, we're in charge of immigration, and they can't do that because that's our job. How do you respond to that from a constitutional basis?
I respond by building by building facilities tent city facilities to house these illegal immigrants that are not air conditioned and not pleasant so that these folks don't want to come here.
So you're a big fan of Sheriff Joe.
Oh, absolutely. He was a great
Put him in
sheriff.
charge of the tent city.
All right, so there's we've talked a lot about this with some other of the gubernatorial candidates. Lot of news about homelessness here.
There's homelessness all over this town.
Yeah.
It's worse. It's the worst I've ever seen in the entire time I've lived here.
Yeah, so we know what happened in San Francisco, that beautiful city.
It's been run down.
Yeah, nobody wants to
By
go
the
over there.
bay,
We know what's happening in Los Angeles, right? Some beautiful beaches you can't go to anymore. What is your solution for homelessness?
Well, I plan on going to ask the homeless myself. I plan on holding a barbecue in downtown Phoenix in the middle of the homeless population so that I can gather them together and ask them how we can help them. That's my plan. Because I don't know the solution. And I don't know that anybody does.
Unfortunately, so many of these people have difficulties with drugs and some with mental illnesses. Yes. And we can go back, and I love this president, Ronald Reagan, but he did away with some of the mental tests that were given and monies that were spent for the mentally ill. And I think that, I hate to say this, but I think some of that needs to be reestablished because you can't have mentally ill people around in your society. And a lot of them, unfortunately, Ray, are probably the same ones that are wanting the school for the little boys to learn how to be
that's a mental
queens.
hospital.
That's a mental problem too.
Well, you know, when you think about this, and you know, somebody can always say, well, we don't want to see it, we don't want it here. But when you think about the homeless population here, and when you're driving in your car, getting from point A to point B, and on every single corner there's somebody begging. What are your thoughts on allowing? Listen, if somebody wants to live their life, I'm for you. You can have whatever choice you want. We live in a free country. Do whatever you want. But I don't know if I want to be bothered every single place that I go. So, is there some way, whether it's within city limits, that it's not allowed, or if you want to have, you know, if you want to live on, you know, a piece of land somewhere else? But what are your thoughts on that?
Well, I know this. I've given many of them my business card, and I've asked them, hey, would you like a job? And most of them say no. So I don't know how to get these people motivated or get these people off of the drugs so that they can become motivated to want to work and want to better their lives. Again, I don't know the solution, but we need to come up with one.
Well, one of the things...
Do you think that they should be, and I mean, I'm sorry to interrupt, I just wanted, do you think that they should be allowed to loiter?
I don't think I like the loitering, no. I don't like the trash. I don't like the loitering. It's not safe. I mean, I own a business in Mesa in an area that's maybe not so safe either. And we've had some questionable people walk in the door. Luckily, my daughter, sitting right over there, is armed. So all she has to do is flash the gun, and they usually walk out. But there's some dangerous characters around my store in Mesa. And most of them are on drugs. That's the major problem. Most of them are on drugs.
Well, when we have open borders, and I'm just going to get back to that real quick, and Ron, you know, we talked about this a lot. What is it, 80% of the fentanyl coming into the country?
Yes.
Comes across our southern border. This is ours.
That's right.
Are we responsible for this?
Well, yes, absolutely.
I would say yes.
100%.
Yes. So if you're living in Nebraska, if you're living in Illinois, if you're living in Kansas, and you're getting a lot of fentanyl, you know what? It's our responsibility, and we got to take ownership of that.
We're gonna talk to somebody that I've kind of lined up on the homeless issue here in Arizona. And one of the things that a lot of people don't realize is that they are, especially in the downtown area, they're going into the alleyways and setting up tents behind people's houses.
Yes.
And they're setting up the little tent cities in the big alleyways.
They're also setting up tent cities in the canal systems throughout the state, throughout the valley. They're also setting up tent cities within the Salt River area there in Tempe. In all the green area there where the rivers are, where all the trees are down in there, they're setting up down there.
I see them.
I mean, they have campfires there at night.
Yeah,
it's
Did they sing Kumbaya?
Probably.
Probably not that song,
No,
but other songs they did.
we've got it. We've got it. Society has to provide. California set the worst example ever, and it's picked up across the country, especially in states like ours that have very mild winters down in the lowlands of the valley, Tucson, Phoenix. Nobody wants to be in Montana in December or January. So they all move down. They all come down here.
They'll come down here.
Yeah.
Well,
Hawaii, California, Arizona have the best climates, and that surprisingly, Hawaii is full of homeless. I've been to Hawaii.
Yeah.
It's full of homeless. You wouldn't believe it.
Yeah, a lot of indigenous.
Yeah.
So it's a big. It's going to get worse before it gets better. Are you prepared for this?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. And one thing that we talked about, Ron, and this is so very important. I'm glad we didn't forget it because I know we're running out of time. We've asked just about every other gubernatorial candidate and Senate candidate in the state of Arizona. There seems to be a disconnect between the party and the people who were elected. And we've asked everybody, what is your participation? You running as a Republican, as the governor, will you step into that place
A leadership
where you
role.
would be the leader of not only the state, but the Republican Party?
Right. If I'm elected Arizona governor, I will govern like the Ron DeSantis of Arizona. That's how I would govern. I mean, the bills he's pushing out there,
certainly.
the bills he's signing are amazing.
But with because we have a county Republican Party, we have a state Republican Party. Normally, we would have 2 Republican senators, a Republican governor, and Republican-led legislature.
Right. And
why is it-
federal. Don't miss the federal as well.
I mentioned that. But I mean, we normally have
And the fourth branch of government, the Corporation Commission.
right. So why aren't we why isn't there any unity between these places?
You know, there's a lot of rhinos in the party, so it's hard to get unified. There's a lot of
Are you a
rhinos.
PC by chance?
No, I'm not
Precinct
a PC.
committeeman?
No.
Okay, you see, Ray and I have observed this, and we see it all the time. The bill that came through, the 2839, where they did away with precinct committeemen and they were appointed
Oh
only
my
one
God,
by
that was
district.
terrible.
Yeah.
Rusty. Rusty.
Yeah, it was Rusty Bauer.
Rusty Bauer.
Karen
And he
Fan.
let me down because he used to be a state mine inspector. He's a contractor type guy to me. I looked up to the guy. Clarence Ellis, a friend of mine, said he was a great guy, and then he does this. I was like, what?
And then, of course, then the Republican Party didn't know anything about it.
Yeah.
The state, the House, the Senate leadership didn't mention it to of all people,
To the counties?
precinct committee leadership.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They don't tell the people that are directly tied and involved.
And then it was an emergency bill, and the governor signed it all in one day, with no discussion in hearings in the legislature.
It almost looked like a way for them to take over the party and sort of mold it into what they wanted by appointing the people they wanted.
Well, I think a lot of people are upset that the establishment is being dismantled, and it's being dismantled from the ground up, which is the
Correct.
most powerful
From the
way.
grass.
Yeah.
Yep, from the
All right,
grass.
so how do we get in touch with you? How do we learn more about you? I mean, I wish we had more time. We're out of time now, but how can we get in touch with you to see where you stand on certain issues?
Well, to see
What's
where I
the
stand
best way?
on certain issues, you can go to my website. That's neelyforgovernor.com. That's Neely, Neely, FOR, governor.com.
Very colorful. I still want a heart of that like
and
you.
how can people find out more about you and donate to your campaign? What are you looking for right now that you have your
You running
signatures?
clean election?
Well,
or
as
you
of
running-
thus far, I've self-funded most of my campaign. I've got some money in donations, and I hadn't been looking for that. I wanted to get on the ballot first before I got serious about fundraising. Now I'm in the race. Now I'm in the fight. Now I'm serious about fundraising. So yes, I do need your help. I need your donations. I need you to get me in this fight so I can win. I'm running against a Trump-endorsed candidate named Carrie Lake, who I happen to believe is a Democrat. So
All right, so are you being invited, now that you're on the ballot, there's 6 of you, are you all being invited to these events that happen?
I was just uninvited to an event now that I made the ballot, actually. Yeah.
Okay, well, can you give us a quick snippet of this?
I don't want to embarrass anybody.
Okay.
But it's
I
an
think we're-
establishment event, and I
think
wasn't invited.
I think we're going to find that happening. If you can't pull probably 10%, you're not.
Well,
gonna
here's
be
the thing: you
invited.
don't poll if the news doesn't report on you. right? That's how it works.
Of course.
Yeah.
You know how it works.
At this
That's
point,
why
the news
we're
hasn't
here.
reported on me. People have been meeting me at LD meetings, and they're like, "Who are you? You're on the ballot? I've never heard of you."
Yeah.
You know, I just
Well,
went up
that's
to-
why
I
we
just went
wanted
up
to have you
Prescott.
here on
Yeah.
Hub TV USA.
Yeah, I
that's why we
appreciate
wanna-
that.
Will you come back and let us know how things are going?
Absolutely.
And if you have any news to break, I mean, if you see something going on, we've broken national news. If it was here, the next day it went national. So
I will say this. I've been told that Steve Gaynor does not want to debate me. Steve said that. And I've also been told the rumor is Kerry Lake doesn't want to debate me either.
Now, why would that be?
They're saying they won't show up to a debate if I'm invited. Now, I don't know about the other two candidates, Karen Taylor Robson or Matt Sam. I'm not sure how they feel about debating me.
Don't forget Paula.
Paula Giuliani Z. I like her. I actually like her.
Hey,
I
listen.
think we debate well together.
You know what the thing is? That's why we live in the best country in the world, is that you're going to have a wide variety of people that are running, and it doesn't make one a bad person or one
That's right.
a nice person. These are all wonderful people, and we're not talking about them as a person. We're talking about what job can they do best for you, and
That's
which
right.
do you believe in, and which one do you want to stand behind?
Listen,
It's
I've
a-
got
it's a
executive
wonderful-
experience. I've
No,
ran
no.
businesses all my life. I think I got what it takes.
That's
One
what Donald
final
Trump
question.
had.
Yeah.
One final question, Ray, and we've asked this of a lot of candidates as well. Would you ever consider, we have a lot of really good people, and I
Yeah.
think we just brought that to your attention, but only one wins and the others just scatter
That's
to the
right.
winds. I'm kind of the opinion that it's a good idea maybe to pick some of these things up, chief of staff and working for the governor, and even being, say, the Department of Administration head, which is pretty much the,
Those are
dealing with
appointed
the governor.
positions?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Try and pull these talented people in because we've got a really good slate of talented people.
So I guess the question that you're asking is, if you were elected governor, would you go to your fellow candidates and ask them to be part of your organization? And on the opposite side of the coin, would you be willing to work with some of the other candidates as well if they happen to win?
Absolutely. I mean, I want to support the party.
Yeah.
Sure.
In the end, I want to support the party.
All right.
Because I definitely don't want a Democrat running us into the ground.
Yeah.
We've already seen what it did to California.
Hey,
Well,
we're running out of time,
that's right.
Ray.
Scott Neely is
And we
here.
have Scott here. Give him a look-see. He's got a nice tan. Look at the smile.
Work outside.
Except the only
Keeps
thing
me
is he
tan.
doesn't get close enough to his razor, I guess.
Yeah,
but
but you
that's
have all
okay.
those tan lines about right
Yeah.
here, right?
Yeah, I got the truck driver.
The farm. Remember the
Yeah.
farmers with the hats?
Absolutely.
I went to school in a farm zone, and man, you could always tell a farmer because take off their hat and they were white as could be.
And you got to see their legs too.
So anyway, thank you for watching Hub TV USA. So I'm got to get used to that, Ray. And thank you for joining us, Scott.
It was a pleasure. It was
We'll
a
see
pleasure.
you Wednesday night.
Wednesday
I'm
night.
fighting back.
Fighting back.
And so don't miss that episode. We'd like to thank Doris over there. She's back there behind those lights, and we'd like to thank her for running this board. And we will see you again Wednesday night. Thanks for joining us. Have a good evening.
Thanks for watching Backstreet Gossip.
When I want updated information, I listen to Hub Radio Phoenix.